Prior to colonization, many African rulers had established trade relationships with European countries such as Netherlands, French, Portugal, and Britain. The presence of European specifically along the coast was indisputable, with the establishment of trading posts and eventually the Atlantic slave trade following abolishment of slave trade and the development of industrial revolution in Europe. Europeans began to seek out more profitable ways of achieving raw material. This would be a driving force to the occupations and shortly after the subjugating of indigenous people and Africa and their resources. Besides abstraction of natural resources, rivalry between European countries and an effort to civilize indigenous people played a pivot role in later colonizing a continent almost 3 times larger than Europe. Although Europeans had a common goal throughout colonialism, the ways of which they went to achieve was quite different. Some countries sought to govern their colonies through charters, company, and indirect rules, while others governed through assessment and direct rules. We will be discussing 2 societies in particular, the Congo Free State and Nigeria.
One example of direct rule in Africa was the Congo Free State. Under the control of Leopold II of Belgium, the Congolese people were used for their labor to extract many different resources from the area, such as rubber. Traditional African leaders held no power at this time. The only type of authority they had was if there were soldiers in the Force Publique, Leopold's private army, where they were still controlled by Belgian officers. Any resistance from the Congolese was met with cruel and brutal punishments. Mutilation in the form of cutting off hands was a common punishment. With Leopold in the power, the population of the Congo Free State went from 20 million to 8 million. When the truth of Leopold's regime spread, he was forced to give control over the Belgian government in 1908. Under the control of the Belgian parliament, the Congo Free State was called the Belgian Congo. The Congolese people were still forced to extract resources from the land for the benefit of Europe and the United States. During World War II, the Belgian Congo supplied the U.S. with uranium. While the Belgian government wasn't as harsh as Leopold, they still did not treat the Congolese people fairly, often describing themselves as having the mentality of children and not capable of ruling themselves. Many rebellions happened during this time. In the 1920s, anti-European religious groups were active, including Kimbanguism, Negro Mission in the West, and the Kitawala in the Southeast. It was prohibited for Africans to have political associations, so they would organize in cultural clubs such as the Alliance of Bakongo, formed in 1950, and would later become a political party that gave the first president of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The first political party was the MNC, established in 1958 and headed by Patrice Lumumba. When riots broke out in Leopoldville, now Kinshasa, in January of 1959, Belgium began to realize it could no longer hold onto power, and on June 30th, 1960, the Belgian Congo became an independent republic. Now known as the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or the DRC, it is the second largest country in Africa. The first president was Joseph Kasavubu, but after 5 years of ruling in 1965, Joseph Mobutu seized power and later changed the name of the country to Zaire. Even after Belgium left the Congo, the resources of the country were still used incorrectly. Mobutu began to use the country's riches and natural resources to stay in power, which did not help the Congolese people. The Rwandan genocide in 1994 impacted the DRC, which approximately 2 million Hutus fleeing Rwanda and coming into Zaire, they aligned themselves with Mobutu and began to kill the Tutsi people that lived there for generations. In 1997, Tutsi militias controlled by Laurent Kabila, backed by Rwanda, Uganda, and Angola, came into the capital, Kinshasa, and overthrew Mobutu. Laurent Kabila became president and turned Zaire back into the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but the overthrow of Mobutu did not end the fighting in the DRC. Laurent asked Zimbabwe, Namibia, and Angola to help fight the Hutu forces from Rwanda. This is known as the Second Congo War. This war lasted all the way until 2003, resulting in more than 5 million deaths. Though the war has ended, violence and instability continues to affect the side of the DRC. However, there was a brief moment of peace that started in 2008 with the DRC and Rwanda coming together to fight the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, or the FDLR. In 2012, the still collapsed when the rebel group M23 became active in eastern DRC. The UN has been carrying out a peacekeeping mission in the DRC since 1990, making it one of the biggest with approximately 20,000 personnel on the ground. They have not been making much of a difference though, because in 2010, when a rebel group raided villages in eastern DRC and raped around 200 women 19 miles away from a UN military base, the peacekeepers did nothing and claimed to not have learned about it until way later. The DRC is known as the rape capital of the world. More recently, there has been an Ebola outbreak in eastern DRC. There have been 10 Ebola outbreaks since 1976 in the DRC, but this one is unlike any other because it is in a war zone area, making it hard to get it under control. It started in late July of 2018 in North Kivu. Since then, there have been 373 suspected cases, 347 confirmed cases, and at least 217 deaths. It is the largest outbreak in DRC history, and the violence in the eastern part of the country is making it hard to find people affected and give vaccines to those in need of them. However, the government is doing what they can and have even started multi-drug trials to help treat the disease. On July 30th, 2006, the DRC held their first democratic elections, which saw Laurent Kabila's son, Joseph Kabila, elected to president of the country. Since 2011, there have been no more elections, even though there was planned for 2016, but that was postponed. There is expected to be an election on December 23rd, 2018.
After the British government assumed direct control of the Royal Niger Company territories, the northern areas were renamed the Protectorate of Northern Nigeria, and the land in the Niger Delta along with the lower reaches of the river was added to the Niger Coast Protectorate, which was renamed the Protectorate of Southern Nigeria. Lagos remained the capital of the south, with Zunguru the new capital of the north on January 1st, 1914, following the recommendations of Sir Frederick Lagarde. The two protectorates were amalgamated to form the Colony and Protectorate of Nigeria under a single governor-general resident in Lagos. Between 1919 and 1954, the title reverted to governor. Following Lagarde's success in the north, he set out principles of the administrative system subsequently institutionalized as indirect rule. Essentially, local government was to be left in the hands of traditional chiefs subject to the guidance of European officers. Native institutions were utilized in interference with local customs to keep a minimum, although the British did not also understand the local customs. While this system had built-in contradictions, over the years, Nigerian system developed into a sophisticated form of local government, especially in the Americas under the banner of native administration, which became the hallmark of British colonial rule in Africa. Many changes accompanied British rule, Western education, the English language, Christianity spread during the period, new forms of money, transportation, communication were developed, and the Nigerian economy became one of the export of cash crops. Areas with lucrative crops, such as cocoa and peanuts, profited, while many people in different parts of the country had to migrate to work elsewhere as tentative farmers or use their newly acquired education and skills in cities as wage earners, traders, and artisans. Two types of government emerged, central and local. The central government presided over the governor general and accountable to the secretary for the colonies in London, was more powerful but distant from the people. Local administration were the colonial citizens typically experienced. Colonial authority was based on the policy of indirect rule first developed in the north. To prevent any union oppositions to its authority, the British adopted a divided and rule policy, keeping Nigerian groups separated from one another as much as possible. Traditional authorities were co-opted in the north, and where the spread of Western education by Christian missionaries was strongly resisted by Muslim leaders. In the south, the British occasionally created a political hierarchy where there had been none before. In most cases, they ruled through those who were most malleable, whether these people had traditional positions of authority or not. Because Western education and Christianity spread rapidly in the south and not in the north, development was much slower in the north. and the growing disparity between North and South later caused political tensions. Further dislocation accompanied the outbreak of World War I. Locally involved the immediate invasion of the German-held Cameroon by Nigerian forces, followed by a costly campaign that lasted until 1960. Later, Nigerian troops were sent to East Africa. During World War II, they again served in East Africa as well in Burma. In 1922, Cameroon was divided in a League of Nations mandated between France and Britain. Britain administering its area within the government of Nigeria, and after 1946, the mandated areas were redesignated as a United Nations Trust territory.
Although colonial rule appeared secure in the first 2 decades of the 20th century, the British struggled to keep control of their Nigerian colony and continued to do so until Nigeria became independent in 1960. The British, when faced with dissent, tended to grant political reforms in an effort to dispel the attractiveness of more radical suggestions. Early on in colonial rule, for example, Nigerians protested the manner in which water rates and head taxes were collected. Nigerians also requested more political representation. The Nigerian Legislative Council was established in 1914 and was given limited jurisdiction. It was replaced in 1922 by a larger one that included elected members from Lagos and Calabar. Although its powers were limited and the northern provinces remained outside its control, a more representative system did not appear until 1946, when each geographic group of provinces had its own House of Assembly with a majority of non-official, though not yet all elected members. There were also a House of Chiefs and in Lagos a Central Legislative Council. By 1919, the National Council of British West Africa, an organization consisting of elites across West Africa, was demanding that half the members of the Legislative Council be Africans. They also wanted a university in West Africa and more senior positions for Africans in the colonial civil service. Beginning in the 1920s, a number of Nigerians joined other blacks in various parts of the world to embark on the wider project of Pan-Africanism, which sought to liberate black people from racism and European domination. In 1923, Herbert Macaulay, the grandson of Samuel Ajay Crowther, established the first Nigerian political party, the Nigerian National Democratic Party, which successfully consisted 3 Lagos seats in the Legislative Council. Macaulay was despised by the British, but he came to be regarded as the father of modern Nigerian nationalism. After the 1930s, political activities focused primarily on ways to end British rule. A national party, the Nigerian Youth Movement, emerged in 1934, and its members won elections to the Legislative Council. After 1940, political activities were broadened to include more people. In 1944, Macaulay and Nnamdi Azikiwe, an Igbo who had been educated in the United States, united more than 40 different groups to establish the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, NCNC. The forces unleashed against the British were now diverse, including soldiers who had served in World War II, the media, restless youth, market women, educated people, and farmers, all of whom became committed to the anti-colonial movement. Political leaders resorted to the use of political parties and the media to mobilize millions of Nigerians against the continuation of British rule. The British answered this activity by attempting to create a more representational colonial system. The Macpherson Constitution, promulgated in 1951, provided for a central House of Representatives, but friction between the central and regional legislatures related to the question of where Supreme Party authority lay soon caused a breakdown. In response, Azikiwe and other nationalists, the Littleton Constitution of 1954 created a fully federal system comprising the 3 geographic regions of Nigeria and the southern Cameroons and the federal territory of Lagos. Each region had a governor, premier, cabinet, legislature, and civil service, with a significantly weaker federal government represented in Lagos by a governor-general bureaucracy, House of Representatives, and Senate. The Southern Protectorate was divided into 2 provinces in 1939, Western and Eastern, and in 1954 they, along with Northern Protectorate, were renamed the Western, Eastern, and Northern regions as part of Nigeria's reconstruction into a federal state. Internal self-government was granted to the Western and Eastern regions in 1957. The eastern region was dominated by Ezekiel